What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today I'm going to be doing a Qliphort deck profile. So I'm really excited for you guys because this deck is an awesome pendulum deck that I've included all sorts of spicy tech cards in this build for you guys. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name scripted in every single video, getting a signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Qliphort Scout. This card is a definite 3-of in the deck, and all of your Qliphort monsters that are pendulum monsters actually share a common pendulum effect, as you cannot special summon monsters except for Qli monsters, and this effect cannot be negated. But we actually have some really interesting ways around that effect. But this card also has the ability once per turn, you can pay 800 life points to add a Qli card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card, which is a great effect to be able to use. We then play 3 copies of Monolith. Monolith is a definite 3 in the deck because this card can let you draw so much in this particular build, and it's just a really cool card to be able to play. If you tribute summoned this turn, then you can draw a number of cards equal to the number of Qli monsters you tributed for a tribute summon this turn, which is a really cool effect to be able to just draw a bunch of cards in this deck off this card's ability, and you can draw upwards of 3 cards off this card's effect. We then play 3 copies of Carrier. Carrier is a really good 3 in the deck, and all of your effect monsters that are Qli pendulum monsters actually share a common effect, that you can normal summon this card without tributing, and if this card is normal summon without tributing or special summon, its level becomes 4, and its original attack becomes 1800. And if this card is normal summon or set, is unaffected by the effects of any monster whose original level or rank is lower than this card's current level, which is a really interesting common effect to have on all of your Qli pendulum effect monsters, which is just such a cool effect. This card has a unique ability that if this card is tributed, then you can target 1 monster on the field and return it back to the hand. We then play 3 copies of Helix. Helix is a really cool 3-of as well in the deck that has a unique ability. If this card is tributed, then you can target a spell or trap on the field and destroy it. We then play one of the best Qli cards in the entire deck, and that's going to be 3 copies of Qliphort Stealth. Stealth is insane. This card is so good, and it's actually a speed spell 4, which is just absolutely insane. That when this card is tribute summoned by tributing a Qli monster, you can target 1 card on the field and return it back to the hand, and your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation, which is just an insanely powerful effect to be able to use with this card. I love this card in the deck as a 3-of, and it's just such a powerful effect. We then play 2 copies of Shell. Shell is a definite 2-of in this deck and has a really good effect that if this card is normal summoned by tributing a Qli monster, it can make a second attack during each battle phase, and if it attacks a defensive monster, it does piercing damage. We then play just a single copy of Disc. Disc is a really good card in this deck as a 1-of because it helps you swarm the field. Is when you summon this card by tributing a Qli monster, you can special summon out 2 Qli monsters from your deck, but destroy them during the end phase, which is a totally cool effect to be able to use in this deck to be able to just instantly get 2 more monsters on the field. We then play a single copy of Cephalopod. Cephalopod is just a good 1-of in the deck. You really only play this card in the deck as a 1-of to be able to use for its scale because it is a scale 9. I really like to be able to even out my scales in this deck, so you're playing 10 of one and 9 of the other, which is just really cool to be able to use in this deck, and I really like that about this build. We then play a single copy of Qliphort Towers. Towers is one of the craziest cards ever printed, and it's such a good card in this build and just really easy to put on the field. It has the ability, cannot be special summoned. It requires 3 tributes of Qli monsters to be able to normal summon or set this card. And if this card is normal summon or set, it's unaffected by spell or trap effects and by activated monster effects whose original level or rank is lower than this card's current level. And all special summon monsters lose 500 attack and defense, and once per turn you can make your opponent send a monster from their hand or their side of the field to the graveyard, and it's their choice, which is a crazy cool effect. This card is absolutely insane. We then play a single copy of Skybase. I really wanted to tech in a single copy of Skybase just so you could actually put the exact monster you want on the field in this deck, and it's really cool in this particular build because it shares a similar effect to your copy of Towers, that it basically is protected from monsters with a level or ranks lower than it, and it also has the ability spell or trap protection, which is really cool. It requires 3 tributes just like your copy of Towers, but this card is a Change of Heart, which is insane. It says the ability once per turn, you can target one monster that your opponent controls and take control of it until the end of the turn, which is just a crazy powerful effect to be able to go in for game. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is just really good as a 3 of the deck to basically just stop your opponent from touching the deck, and it's a really good 3 of in this build. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start off with a single copy of the field spell, Laser Clip. This card is really good as a 1 of the deck because it has the ability during the main phase, you can normal summon 1 Qli monster in addition to your normal summoner set, which is a really cool effect to use, but normal summon of Qli monsters cannot be negated either, which is just really good to be able to use in this build. We then play 3 copies of Summoner's Art. Summoner's Art is to be able to search out your copy of Monolith or your copy of Scout directly from your deck, which usually you're searching out a copy of Scout if you don't have it. But this card is basically Rhoda for your copy of your Rhoda, which is really cool. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. You can change this out for Extravagance or Desires if you want to, but this card is just really good to be able to dig into the deck and get the exact cards that you need. I really like this card as a 3 of in the build, but again, you can change it out for 2 copies of Desires and a copy of Called by the Grave, or you can change it out for 3 copies of Extravagance if you really aren't going into the extra deck that much. We then play 3 copies of Sacrifice. Sacrifice is a really awesome equip spell for this deck that has the ability to equip only to a Qli monster, and it gains 300 attack and cannot be destroyed by battle. The equipped monster can be tributed also for 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a Qli monster, and if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to add a Qli monster from your deck to your hand, which is a really awesome effect. I love this card as a 3 of in the deck, and it's just such a powerful card to be able to play in this build as a 3 of. We then play 3 copies of my personal attack in the deck and a very old school attack for this deck, and that's going to be 3 copies of Wavering Eyes. Wavering Eyes is actually how we get around our Qli monsters pendulum effect that we can't summon anything but Qli monsters, but this card is great in this deck because it destroys our pendulum scales and then gives us some really cool effects. You destroy as many cards in each player's pendulum scales as possible and apply the effects depending on the amount of cards that were destroyed. If you destroy 1, inflict 15 points of damage to your opponent's life points, which is really cool. If you destroy 2, you get to add a pendulum monster from your deck to your hand, which basically turns us into an additional Rhoda to be able to search out additional copies of Scout, which is really cool. If you destroy 3, in case your opponent's playing Pendulum, you can actually banish 1 card from the field, and if you destroy 4, you can add another copy of Wavering Eyes from your deck to your hand. I love that effect about this card, that you can get those effects, and it's just such a powerful 3 of in this particular build to destroy your Pendulum scales, and then even if you want to, throw an additional 2 copies of your monsters in your Pendulum scales to then Pendulum summon out the monsters that you just destroyed, which is such a powerful effect to be able to use in this deck, and it's a definite 3 of in this build. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Skill Drain. This card is insane in this deck. Being able to negate monster effects on the field is just really good for this deck. I love this card in this build, and it's so powerful to be able to flip this card face up and then basically just turn off your Qli's effects, which is just such a cool thing. To be able to also turn off your opponent's card's effects, and it's just a really awesome 3 of in this build. It's just such a powerful trap card to be able to activate, and it's just a really good card in this build. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with 3 copies of Genius. Genius is a definite 3 of in this build, and it's such a powerful card because it has the ability that this Link Summon card is unaffected by spell or trap effects and the activated effects of other Link monsters. And once per turn, you can target 1 face-up card in either player's field except this card, and both of those cards have their effects negated until the end of this turn. And when 2 or more level 5 or higher monsters are special summoned to zones this card points to, then you can add 1 level 5 or higher machine monster from your deck to your hand. I love that about this card. It just gives you searches for pendulum summoning, and it's a really good link monster for Qliphort. We then play a single copy of Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax. This card is super easy to summon in the deck, just a really awesome boss monster to put on your side of the field. We then play a single copy of Access Code, because Access Code can pop multiple cards on the field, and it's just a really good toolbox card to play in the deck. We then play a single copy of Appaloosa for the arrows. It's very easy to put on your side of the field, and it's a really good monster negate. We then play a single copy of Draco Masters of the Tenyi. Draco Masters of the Tenyi is really good in this deck because it works with normal monsters, which is really cool, and it also has 3 downwards arrows, which is really nice for this build. We then play a single copy of Nightmare Unicorn. Nightmare Unicorn is really good as a 1 of the deck to be able to spin cards off the field. We then play a single copy of Selene, which we can make this card in the deck because I do play a really interesting target for this card in this particular build, and it's a really good 1 of in the deck to basically bring back your monsters from the graveyard. We then play a single copy of Nightmare Phoenix. Nightmare Phoenix is really good in this deck as a 1 of, and it's just really good in this deck to be able to pop spells or traps on the field. It's just a really good card overall. Something else to mention about Selene is the main reason you actually play this card is for the 3 downwards arrows, and it's really good for that reason. We then play a single copy of Asa, the Earth Charmer. This card is how you actually step into your copy of Selene, because all of your Qliphort monsters are actually Earth, so it's very easy to bring back one of them from the grave or something that your opponent's playing that's Earth to be able to step into a copy of Selene for all 3 of those downwards arrows. It's really awesome to have all 3 of those arrows to be able to make basically a full board of Qliphort monsters, which is just really cool. We then play a single copy of Beyond the Pendulum. Beyond the Pendulum is good in any Pendulum deck and a definite 1 of in this build. We then play a single copy of IP Masquerena. IP is so we can step into a bunch of different cards in this deck, like our copy of our Nightmare Unicorn during the opponent's turn to spin a card, a copy of Appaloosa to give us multiple monster negates, or our copy of Mekk Knight Crusadia Avermax, which is the card I usually make when I make a copy of IP in this deck. Again, all of these link monsters are just toolbox in the deck. You rarely make anything but genius in this build because of the Qliphort monster's ability, but when you have Wavering Eyes and you can turn their effects off, and you have a bunch of monsters on the field that you can step into these cards, they're really good options. We then play a single copy of number 41 Bagooska. Bagooska is just really good to be able to make and turn your opponent's field off. And then finally a single copy of Exciton Knight, just in case you need to board wipe. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoy it. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Qliphort before, it's absolutely amazing. Again, the only cards you're really summoning from the extra deck is going to be your copies of Genius, because they are Qliphort monsters. Again, we have kind of sort of a way around it with our copy of our Wavering Eyes, but if you still have your scales, you can't Pendulum summon anything or special summon anything but Qli monsters, which is a little bit of a downside for the deck, but the deck can stand on its own, which is really cool. So anyways, guys, that's it for this one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.